to Victress FM, brought to you by Victress Entrepreneurs. Here's your host, single mum, entrepreneur and brain injury survivor, Michelle Williams.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victress FM, where every week I'll be introducing you to inspiring women who have refused to give up and have gone after their dreams even in the face of extreme adversity. We'll be diving into her victories and her defeats and discovering the lessons that she's learned along the way, all with the aim of inspiring you to step into your own unique power to create a business and life that you love. This week I was joined by the amazing Nathalie Belle-Larant, who is a certified transformation coach, author, soul midwife and impact entrepreneur. Nathalie has an incredibly inspiring story of triumph over adversity, having turned the pain of her own pregnancy loss into power by forming the Mammaste Movement, which helps women from all over the world to heal from pregnancy loss. In this episode, we talk all about decoding the messages that personal trauma and pain brings and turning that pain into power, passion and purpose. Having dealt with pregnancy loss myself, I found Nathalie's story so inspiring, and I'm sure that you will too. Hi Nathalie, welcome to Victress FM, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, hi Michelle, it's my absolute pleasure and honor to be with you and your listeners today. I'm so excited. I'm coming from Australia.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for getting up late at night to join us from Australia. I really appreciate it. And as you know, Victress FM is all about celebrating women's triumph over adversity. So I love interviewing inspiring women who have overcome huge challenges in their lives to create incredible success, both in their businesses and their lives. And I know you have a really incredible story to share. So I just wondered if you didn't mind sharing your victory story, and in particular what I'm interested in knowing is what you consider to be the biggest challenges that you faced in your life, and how do you think those challenges have shaped you into the person that you are today?
Oh, well, what an amazing question, Michelle. So I will try to summarize that, and what I'd like to do is probably just start with a little story. If I take you back at the time where I was a child, I had a very beautiful family, a very loving family, and unfortunately I also had a grandfather that wasn't that loving and caring, and started abusing me when I was a really young girl. That taught me at the time that you want to open up and you want to explain things to other people, and they not listening to you. So that taught me to actually keep myself quiet and keep things locked inside. So over the years, and growing up, I was always very shy and very introverted, and always undervalued my own gifts and talents, and believed that my voice wasn't necessarily worth being listened to or being heard. And as obviously grown older and started my independent life and find the love of my life and decided to have children. Some very, very unfortunate circumstances happened at the time, and we probably can get into a little bit more detail about that later. But when I was 16 or 17 weeks pregnant of our second little baby girl, I had a call from my obstetrician. We were just on our way to a holiday for Christmas, and I had a call from my obstetrician in the car driving away to our holiday to say, well, we had some test results of yours, and there's something of a concern, but we're not too sure what's happening. And he let me basically sit with that for the 2 weeks of the Christmas break, because there's nothing else they could do. And I was in absolute agony for 2 weeks, as you can imagine, trying to figure out what exactly that meant. when we finally went back after the Christmas break and figured out what was happening, we had the news that our baby girl had a genetic disorder, and that was of such a serious nature that she probably wouldn't survive. So there was so many things happened from there on, from the doubts, the denial, the anger, the what else to do, the research over the internet as to maybe it wasn't true, maybe it wasn't possible, maybe we had something else, maybe they got it wrong, maybe there's something we can do, seeing lots of different specialists. And the reality was, at the end of the day, she had no chance of survival post birth. So she was
Can I ask,
born.
what stage of pregnancy were you at this when you discovered this?
We were about 16 or 17 weeks, and by the time we completed all the various tests afterwards, it was 20 weeks when I gave birth to Emily, and she was stillborn.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's all. Thank you for that. I appreciate your compassion for that story. And I guess this, and the reason I mentioned my original childhood story was this. The birth of Emily happened more than 10 years ago, and it took me 10 years to actually start talking about it. So the story that unfolds in our lives in general, whatever the story is, it is so critical that we can actually have a voice and allow ourselves to share it, whether even if it's just sharing within ourselves to begin with. But I found the challenges where I didn't think it was going to be that challenging to actually now start sharing about that particular story, to bring a voice. And that's one of the reasons why I started the Mammaste Movement, to help other women that have lost pregnancies through miscarriage or abortion, stillbirth, to give them a voice, because it is so often something we keep quiet for many different reasons, whether we feel embarrassed or guilty and misunderstood. There are,
I know. I mean, I've suffered 2 pregnancy losses as well, and that was about 18 years ago now. And it's such a painful thing to go through, all of the grief that you go through, because when you're pregnant, you've kind of conjured up almost what your child's going to be like. You've also looked into the future almost, haven't you?
Yes.
What, how amazing your child's going to be. So to have that taken away from you is just the most awful loss. And you go through all types of guilt, what did I do wrong, and all of these things. But from my own, and I'm just going to catch on something here that you put in your bio, because you've put that you help beautiful souls to catalyse life's trauma and turn epic power and passion and purpose. And I love that, because I know when I suffered my pregnancy losses, it was actually my second pregnancy loss. I was actually working for a company who actually basically made me redundant because I announced my pregnancy, and I went through an extremely stressful sex discrimination tribunal, and consequently I actually lost the baby, which was a horrible thing to go through.
Oh, that's so terrible.
It was awful, but it was a really horrible thing to go through. But it actually took me onto my entrepreneurial path, because I never wanted to go back into the corporate world again. I couldn't face the thought of being betrayed by my employers, or having to feel guilty for telling them I was pregnant, or wanting to have time off to, watch my child's nativity or something like that. So it's actually what forced me onto my entrepreneurial path and helping other women in business. So, so part of that was, I think sometimes when things happen in your life, they take you on a different path, but also you have to make the decision, whether you want to be the victim or victress of your own life. Now, I know you've just sort of mentioned there that it took you to sort of 10 years where you didn't want to talk about it and things like that. But I wonder if you could now just go into a little bit more detail about how this awful trauma in your life has actually taken you onto the path that you're now on, the entrepreneurial path that you're now on.
Thank you for asking that question, and I'm sorry to hear about your personal journey in that space. I think it is so important for people to realize that 1 in 4 women experience a pregnancy loss throughout their lives. And it's an awful statistic when we consider that 1 in 4 women are impacted by that. It's one of the toughest, or it's probably the toughest struggle that we will ever have to face as a mama. So the fact that we all go through something similar and we don't know about it made me want to break the silence. I decided that was enough. It was enough for me to challenge myself and to go beyond the fears that I had. I've always been a very entrepreneurial person in the first place. I've always been interested in being in business for myself. I've actually was running a consulting company for quite a number of years. I was an independent consultant prior to that. And I totally relate to what you're saying. I didn't like the fact of having a boss and to be asking permission to do things in my life. I wanted to be able to run my life in my own terms. So it's sort of made sense to continue in that entrepreneurial path and transform my career into something that was going to empower others. That's something that was missing in my career before that, even though I was enjoying the consulting side and solving people's problems. It was more materialistic in the sense that it was in the corporate world and it was in the IT industry. So I didn't think I was actually changing lives, even though I was helping them do their job better by providing better solutions and things like that. It wasn't, there was no soul connection.
I can get where you're coming from there, because prior to me starting my own entrepreneurial journey, I also worked in sort of IT, and I had the same feeling. I felt like my soul was dying from the inside because I was doing something that, although was probably earning a lot of money for a huge corporation, I didn't feel like it was making a difference in people's lives. So I completely get that. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, I do, and you probably seen that in my bio, that my goal is to empower 1 million households with at least one tool for self-empowerment or healing by 2030. So I've got a pretty ambitious goal, and I'm counting the numbers of soul that I can actually help. And sometimes it doesn't have to be big, but if you make a difference to one person at a time, it's amazing the ripple effect it has. And I do believe that women are at the source of the ripple effect that we can create in terms of change in the world. There is a major shift happening in our society at the moment, and to restoring the feminine power. You'll probably notice that as well, based on the work that you do and the space you're in, and with your listeners. I know you support a lot of women dealing with trauma and changing their life into victresses. So this is amazing, and this is really exciting for us to actually start working and restoring the balance between the masculine and the feminine energy.
And I love that. So and it's such an ambitious goal to empower 1 million households with at least one tool for self-empowerment. or healing by 2030. It is an ambitious goal, but I love it because I'm actually writing a book at the moment. It's called Finding Your Victress Within, and obviously a victress is.
Oh, I love that.
A victress is a woman that is victorious, but I sort of liken. Well, the reason I'm calling the book Finding Your Victress Within is because I do believe that we all have a unique power within ourselves that we can draw upon if we choose to, but we have to want to, and we have to make that conscious decision. So I'm really intrigued to know how you're going to help women do this. You know, that is an ambitious goal. So in what ways are you sort of planning to help women to do this? Because that sounds amazing.
Thank you. You've got a really very, very interesting point there. The reason why people sometimes completely change career or do a 360 or 180 degrees on their life path is that something happens to them. Unfortunately, sometimes we need a catastrophic event of some sort to make us realize that we were even though we might know deep inside, as you said, you were sort of dying inside in the previous work capacity that you were in, but you still had something, you needed something external to actually guide you or just to change your path.
Yeah.
And I think for me it was the same, even though I was in the background preparing myself by my area of interest and my passions, and the fact that I wanted to help myself, in the sense that I equipped myself in studying neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and coaching to be able to help my own healing and my peeling the layers of rubbish that I had accumulated over the years from my personal upbringings and by the beliefs that I had that were not empowering myself. So I think everything happens to a reason, and that's a very strong belief of mine, that no matter what happens in life it's not as important as how we respond to it.
Yes.
So those tools now have become invaluable to be able to support others in their own journey. So I use a lot of intuition when I work with women in particular, especially obviously in the field of Mammaste healing pregnancy loss movement is really working with women. I'm also interested in working with men and grief in that space, because they not necessarily have a voice in especially in the pregnancy and the motherhood world. They can be left behind to deal with their own grief. So I'm bringing in and working with grief counselors and specialists in that space to bring a different dimension. But so my particular focus at the moment is quite strongly on the Mammaste movement. And I'll just give you a quick background. Mammaste, you probably heard the salute Namaste, when people practice yoga and you salute another soul by saying Namaste. I created Mammaste as a little twist, obviously on Namaste, to honor the divine in ourselves and in our children, because I do believe they came to us for a reason. They chose us for a reason to be their parents, and they wanted to teach us something. So it is up to us to honor their memory and to actually seek the learnings that they in a way sacrificed themselves for us to learn. And it goes back to how do we respond to life and to what happens. We can be a victim or we can be a victress. We can actually ask question, why did that happen to me? Or we can actually ask, what is it I was meant to learn from this? How can I grow from that experience? And to answer your question, it's a very long answer to answer your question, but how do I help people now is really helping go beyond whatever traumatic event that happened to them, and use that as a catalyst to dig deeper into what are their true passion. We are so powerful human beings, and I think my favorite quote in the world is, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
I love that. Yeah, that's it.
And it is so amazing. And I had that quote on my wall for probably 2 decades without realizing why I had it there, but it just accompanied me all along. So if you can dig deeper and unveil your true power that we all have within ourselves, then you can actually bring about your true passion and purpose.
And do you think sometimes when you have gone through something traumatic, you can actually use your pain as power to actually propel you forward? Do you think that's something that's possible?
Pain can be utilized to our advantage when we learn how to listen to it rather than ignoring it. And unfortunately, our society has the tendency to give you a tablet to avoid pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. You just take antidepressants. Well, we should actually welcome pain in the sense that it's a sign of discomfort, and discomfort means something is not right. Therefore, maybe we should look at it closer and see what we need to change. So I see pain as a message, not as an enemy.
Yeah,
and so we need to learn how to listen and how to decode the messages.
I agree, and I think sometimes when you're in the midst of the pain, you can't understand it, you can't make sense of it, and you can go through why me. But I think, as you go through life and you look back on some of the things that have happened, sometimes you can take the lessons from them, can't you? And take the blessings. But again, it perhaps has to be a conscious choice to do that. Otherwise, you can sort of get sucked into that whole negative pattern of thought where you do stay in the victim mindset. But I think throughout my life, and I've dealt with pregnancy loss and divorce, single motherhood. I'm a brain hemorrhage survivor, so I've gone through a lot. But as I look back on my life, I actually sort of, I think you can't go through life without having some traumatic events and pain happening. You're not living otherwise, but I think you have to choose what lessons can I learn from this, and and what can I do with that to to make my life better, and also to impact other people's lives, which is why I love what you're doing with the Mammaste Movement in terms of helping other women and families that have dealt with pregnancy loss. I think that's amazing that you're doing that, and a great example again of somebody that's turning their pain into power. Absolutely. And
there's something I'd like to pick up on in what you said, and I think that for our listeners would be really important to notice is you mentioned that sometimes you're actually too deep into your traumatic event or your pain, and you don't necessarily know what to do, or you actually can't see what else you can do. And it's something really important to realize that we can't do it alone, and it's okay to ask for help. For me, it was probably one of the biggest learnings of this whole journey so far, is to actually allow myself to ask for support and to ask for help, and to seek answers from mentors that have been through something like that before. Being entrepreneurs, we're usually very independent and self-driven women, and we tend to want to do it all ourselves, or we could. Not necessarily everyone is like that, but I know I was. Even as a mother, I wanted to do it all myself, and ended up with postnatal depression that I completely ignored because I wanted to be everything for everyone, and I forgot about myself. But the reason I'm mentioning that is the work that you're doing is so needed, and I'm really grateful that you have taken on your beyond your own pain and your own suffering and your own traumas to actually help others by being an example. So thank you for that.
Well, it's something I feel passionate about, because I think through all of the challenges that I've been through in life, and I would say particularly when I was going through my divorce, I felt like I kind of lost my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. I lost my confidence. And it's actually running my own business that actually helped me to rediscover who I was, because I think when you are an entrepreneur and you're running your own business, you are forced to come out of your comfort zone, take on new challenges and do new things that really terrify you. But that journey of coming out of your comfort zone, that you actually really discover who you are and what you're capable of. And I think, really, you get your self-worth and your confidence from that. So that's why I am passionate about Victress entrepreneurs and helping women to overcome whatever adversities they've been through in life, and to really make themselves as successful as they can be in their businesses and their lives. It's certainly something that I feel passionately about. And I just wanted to touch, because I know that on the subject of Mammaste and the movement that you've started there, I know you've written a book and you've got an online community and also an online healing program. So I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that.
All right, of course I can. So I'm really excited about that program. It's called Reborn Mama, and my goal with that program, so it's opening up this year. This season is opening up pretty soon. People can actually check that out on my website to find out when the next course is coming up. The reason I wanted to do it online is to go beyond the one-on-one coaching and support that I provide locally in Australia, or even remotely. Now with technology we can do a lot more in that space, but because of my own personal journey and my own personal story, I know that healing is a holistic, and I approach that in a holistic way. So we all grieve differently, and we all go through our healing journey in a slightly different way. But there are still common elements, and doing a course online like Reborn Mama really allows me to support more women, and together, by having a community of women going through the course together at the same time, in the same space, it gives us such a space and sacred environment to work with. And we can look holistically at our lives and how we can heal in different aspects of our lives. So we use the trauma as the catalyst once again to change and nurture ourselves, so that we can be reborn into our true being as women and as mothers. So it's really an opportunity to transform the hurt and crafting a new life.
And I absolutely love that, because certainly, when I had my pregnancy losses, all those years ago, there's people didn't talk about it. It was brushed under the carpet, and there really wasn't any support. So I absolutely love what you're doing in this area to support women through pregnancy loss. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask as well, in light of everything that you have been through in your life, if you could give your younger self a piece of really good advice, what would it be?
Never give up. I use that sometimes with my son, the never give up, never surrender. I can't remember which movie that's from, but it's always stuck by me. And I think now, even more so as an entrepreneur, the key success is resilience.
Absolutely.
No matter what happens, whatever knocks you down, you always get back up. You might just crawl back up for a little while, but it's you have to get back up, because it's all worth it. Like there's nothing else that's more worth it than being really you. And if it takes a little bit of pain or a lot of pain to go through, you'll come out at the other end so empowered and so on path that you forget. It's a little bit like childbirth. You forget the pain of it after you have been through it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I completely agree with you on. It's about perseverance and resilience, and and like you said, getting back up again, having the resilience to do that, because I think that's the definition of a victress, really, getting back up no matter what knocks and blows you've experienced in life. So can I just ask you one final question here, and that question is, do you have any advice for listeners that are struggling with any particular area of their life at the moment, whether that be to do with pregnancy loss or any challenge, because everybody goes through some sort of challenge or trauma in their life. So what advice would you give to any of our listeners that are struggling with something at the moment, who want to make a change and move from victim to victress? What advice could you give to them?
What came to me right there when you were asking that question is to find a mentor. And as I was mentioning before, that was one of the biggest learnings for me recently, or over the years, but even more so recently. Whatever stage you're at in your life, there is someone that can help you, because they have been through the same thing that you are going through right now. So surrounding yourself with the right people, and in particular finding the right mentor that can help you go through the stage of life there where you're at and break through your problems is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And can I ask you as well, because we're going to sort of wrap up this episode of Victress FM now, and I just wanted to ask how people can find out more about you and how they can connect with you if they want to know more.
All right. So we have a community online, as you mentioned, on Facebook and Instagram. So you can follow Mammaste Official on Facebook and Instagram. And there's also the mammaste.com.au website that is available for people to browse, and available for social media if people would like to connect with me and maybe interested in taking some next steps with me if I can help them with in any capacity. I would love to learn about their story and see if there's anything I can help them with.
Well, that's lovely. So thank you so much for spending the time talking to us. Your story is so inspiring, and I love what you're doing to help other women, and obviously the journey you've been on, and the fact that you are turning your pain into power is really the definition of a victress, which is what Victress FM is all about. So I would really like to thank you for joining us today on Victress FM, Nathalie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. It was a pleasure as well, and learning about all your personal journey and Victress story is amazing. I love success story like yours. You're very inspiring. Thank you, Michelle.
And so are you. Thank you. And I will certainly connect with you again soon, Nathalie. Okay, take care. And to you, my wonderful Victress FM listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I have absolutely loved this episode with Nathalie, and I hope that you have too. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Nathalie and the Mammaste Movement, please check out the show notes or head over to victressentrepreneurs.com, where all of our wonderful podcast guests are featured on our Victress FM blog. Until next week, Victresses, stay victorious.
You're listening to Victress FM. Victress Entrepreneurs, for women who are victorious in business and in life.